Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I'll tell you what, I am so excited to welcome on two incredible co-founders in today's episode. This is an important topic for all of us in business and in life because we are talking about keeping our spaces neat and orderly. And it's no coincidence that we need to do that in our physical spaces as well as in our mental spaces. And we've got two awesome guests to walk us through that. So let me tell you about today's guests. Their names are Sarit and Leo Weiss. Together, they run Neat and Orderly, which is a professional home organizing company based in New York. They aim to bring efficiency and calm into people's lives. You see, it's not just about spaces, into their lives through decreasing clutter and maximizing space. They work closely with their clients to understand their unique needs and visions, which enables them to create an organized home tailored to their specific lifestyle and preferences. And I would actually argue it's important for all people, but especially for us as entrepreneurs, so much of this can unlock new levels of thought, of clarity, of productivity in our businesses. So I'm excited about this one. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Sarit and Leo Weiss. All right, Leo and Sarit, I'm so excited that you're here with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much. We're really excited as well.
Heck yeah. Obviously, I'm pumped about the type of work that you do. I don't think we talk about this stuff enough within the world of business and entrepreneurship. But before we get into the good stuff, I want to hear your backgrounds. I always love these entrepreneurial backstories. So who the heck are Leo and Sarit? How the heck did you start doing all these cool things?
The way it kind of all started was I actually don't like say this everywhere, but I wasn't always super organized. As a kid, I was not like that kid who lined up all their toys. But basically, as I got older and into teenage years and a little bit past that, I kind of started to really appreciate organization and how it actually can help you, in your business life, in your regular life. Just kind of, it really does have a difference, on your like mental health. And so I kind of like eventually created this real appreciation for organization and kind of, I was actually working in a nursing home doing recreation therapy. And so there was a lot of organization necessary there. There was a lot of like paperwork that needed organization. There was a lot of, just like even supply closets, like, working with senior citizens. It's very, there's so much organization that needs to be had over there. So I kind of started helping them with that as well. And then, I really just was able to see such a need that it really brings people such calm and peace of mind to, really just to their lives, to their mental health. And so I really just began feeling fulfilled from doing this organization. And we said, at one point it was time for me to leave that role in the nursing home. And we decided to kind of jump right in and start this business and really just help change people's lives and, in this way. And I love it. So I'm glad.
And then on my end, I was totally the opposite. Never in my life did I, think about organizing and, putting everything in the right spot and in advantageous spots. But I was going through business through school. I was getting my degree in accounting, and we had met. And as soon as we're getting married, she's putting all these organizing products on our registry, and I really saw the wisdom behind it. And so as she was still working in the nursing home and everything, we had been talking about it more and more about how she really wanted to keep going organizing. And, at that point I had finished my degree in accounting. I was working a little bit in accounting as well. And through working through accounting, you really get an understanding of businesses and how they run. So we had decided that it would be a good time to run, and that Sarit would be the client-facing figure, and that I would be the one on the back end, trying to just run the business and using my background to try to do that as best as possible.
Yeah, I always love when couples combine powers, and really it does sound like such a good fit between your skill sets, your passions. Leo, you talk about your background in accounting, and I think that that's such a powerful combination, but I also really love the transparency. Sarit, you said that you weren't always the most organized person, and I want you to paint that picture for us because you personally went through the transformation that you all helped deliver to your clients of living in a disorganized way to then becoming organized. What do those transformations look like? Let's talk about the actual results that happen, because I'm sure so many of us who are tuning into today's episode, we probably have those same symptoms. So paint that picture for us of why the heck is all this stuff worth it?
Yeah, so it's actually funny that you mentioned because it definitely helps me connect to my clients so much more because, I do know what it feels like to have a cluttered space and to not know what to do and feel so overwhelmed by it. And it actually really like shows my clients that I am like personable in that way and that they can like connect to me. And I think that really helps as more of like the face in the company. I think people really like connect to that and feel comfortable working with us. But yeah, so in terms of like the results, I mean, it's life transforming. As Leo said, like he didn't really have an appreciation for it until I came around and he sees like what it's done for his life. Just like as an example, he used to like come home from work, jacket like goes onto the couch, like not hung up, for example, right? So like, what's the problem there? It's that, the coat closet is too far away from the door. Putting it on a hanger is too much effort. And I think a lot of people, it's a timing issue, right? You come home from work, you're ready for the next thing. You're onto dinner, you're onto this, you're onto that. And I think, so it's basically putting in those systems. So like in that example, so what we did was we actually just put a little hook right on the inside of the door of the coat closet. And so he can just kind of throw his coat on there. And that's kind of just a result that is actually really just like a little bit life transforming, and then it helps your spouse or your partner, not be upset. Oh, his thing's on the floor again, and so I really just think it creates a whole lot of efficiency. And I think people really, really appreciate that. And it makes a big difference in how you live.
And then it's just funny because, like I said before, we had gotten into this before we got married. I really could have just lived with everything everywhere without a care. But now, all of a sudden, in like my little office, it's like I can't do this. Everything's a mess. Sarit, come in here and like help me get this organized. Like I need help. This is too much. Make sure that there's a spot for the pens and everything. And it's an amazing thing about what it can do to my productivity. Also, just working, that everything is where I need it to be and I know where it is.
Yeah, I love that. Leo, publicly getting called out, but I'm right there with you. We all have a chair that is just the home of everything. We all have that one chair in our places. So it's
hanger. That's all that it is. It's on that.
It's true. Also, like those clothes that when we take it off, they're not quite dirty. We didn't wear it for the full day. Perfect for the chair, right? I definitely feel you guys on that. And Leo, I love the fact that obviously you have such a business background and you called out that increase to productivity, which I think for listeners here today, it's going to be an overarching theme because I've always loved that concept of how you do anything is how you do everything. And every time I intentionally sit down and I say, holy cow, my place is so cluttered, let me clean that up, is that then transcends into other aspects of my life, including digital organization. It's almost like the two work hand in hand. Talk to us about that because we do live in such a digital world that not only can we clutter our physical spaces, but digitally as well.
That's actually funny. So the other day, he was actually just showing me that he'd made folders on his computer of different, like of all his tabs. He has like 700 tabs open at a time. So he created, do you want to like expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Like just because like of the way that I've worked, in accounting, it's just you always have a bunch of different tabs, a bunch of different workbooks open. So my computer, when I'm working, I have 15, 20, 25 different tabs on. And like sometimes it would just be memory that this tab is always, the first one and then that other tab is the third one. But now like coming and noticing the power of organizing, like and just the different updates that come out on Chrome or all these other browsers that you can actually just put it into folders. So now I have, different folders for operations or accounting of the company. And it just helps me keep everything. Oh, when I need this, I just go into the accounting folder or a different folder on the desktop, as well as when I am organizing the files that we need for the business. It's just like, now I've gone in and actually made the folders of, these are the tax documents, these are the, these are the contracts that we have signed that we have to keep. So it's just makes it so much easier to find than just, scrolling through your files on your computer and trying to see where's that contract that somebody signed a year and a half ago.
Yeah, and I really love that because it's actually like those constraints, being organized and having to make those choices also forces all of us to think so intentionally and strategically, as opposed to just these things belong where they belong and there's no underlying strategy behind that, which leads me to, Sarit, I'm really interested to hear your perspective on this because there are so many strategies to get organized. Obviously, Marie Kondo has kind of made this a very mainstream thing. I think during the pandemic, so many people got into her approach of organizing. But talk to us about some of those different ways, because there are a million different ways for us all to get organized. What are some of those examples that you've seen are effective with normal people?
Yeah, totally. So, I am very into, not living by one rule always, and that everyone is so different and that everybody needs a different system. So what one might work for one person is not necessarily going to work for the next, right? So for example, if there's somebody who, if you're the kind of person who needs to see everything, otherwise, you'll forget you had it, right? Like if, things are getting lost in the back of your closet and behind things and behind things, and it's basically, if you don't see it, you don't know you have it, you forgot you wore it, you order a new one because you didn't know you have it. Now you have 3 of them a year later, so in that case, it would be like everything, would be obviously like out as much as possible. Nothing behind like closed doors, we say. So like, if you need to corral all of your watches or whatever that is, so a clear bin as opposed to, first of all, just throwing it on the shelf and then it never gets found again. But also as opposed to, like an opaque bin or like a pretty bin or whatever that may be. So like everybody works so different. So, some people like, they just can't stand to see the mess. So then we try to put it all behind closed doors. So there are loads of different ways to organize. And I just think everyone's so different and you have to do what works for you. And I can sit here giving you loads of examples and loads of ways to do things. Actually there is one rule that I kind of do always abide by that I find works for, I haven't yet found a person it doesn't work for, which is called the file fold, which I don't know if your listeners have heard of, the way Marie Kondo, she's the one who kind of came up with this file folding. And what it basically is that in like a dresser drawer, for example, you fold, let's say shirts, you fold your t-shirts and you fold them kind of stacking vertically, so that you can actually see every single one as opposed to stacking on top of each other, which, you can't quite find the bottom one, then it becomes a mess when you take it out. And so that actually is a rule that I kind of do. So there is one that I admit, I'm being super open and honest on this podcast today. That's definitely something that I would say kind of is always a yes. There's everyone's so different. You have to do what works for you.
Yeah, I love that perspective, especially because it's something that I think we all face these choices on a weekly basis. Even, I'm going to extrapolate so much of this to business, obviously because of the nature of the podcast, but also because I think we all think like entrepreneurs. It's such a common thread about those of us who choose to be entrepreneurs. We are wired a certain way. And I'm just so in tune with so many different productivity approaches. Sarit, you mentioned how many different approaches there are for organizing our physical spaces. There's equally as many for productivity approaches. And one of those is eat the frog, for example, where like there's that age-old philosophy of should I do the most difficult thing first or the easiest task first? And there's different philosophies on each of those, and we can all choose what works for us. But I think the underlying question is, where do we start? So when it comes to the work that you do with clients, where do we start? You talked about closets. You talked about hiding things in drawers. Where do we even start? Because listeners are going to have a lot of homework after today's episode.
Oh, yes, Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I would say you start with the place that, that irks you the most, that bothers you the most, that's been kind of the most on your mind, that like, I can't stand, if only my office were, better organized, I'd get a whole lot more done, right? Which was kind of in his example as well. Like, it's really, especially, for entrepreneurs, like there's so much we want to get done. And I find that a lot of times, specifically for entrepreneurs, specifically for business owners, that usually the place that usually is the most bothersome is their office or wherever they are working in their home. And if that place isn't kind of, if not everything has a place in their space, then everything in their mind is like, oh God, I have to go to work and I can't find anything in my office and my computer's a mess, and how am I going to find this file that the client sent me? And like we were saying before, it really, really has such an effect on productivity. And I think starting with the space that kind of like is the elephant in the room for you, that will hopefully help you get it done.
Yeah, along those lines, I think it's so fascinating to think about, obviously, business again. It's just, I'm biased. And I want to hear about your own business organization, because Leo gave it to us right off the bat about how your different backgrounds really contribute to also the way that you run and organize your business, because our businesses also need to be organized. I'm going to inject that into our conversation here today. So I'd love to hear how you all structure your own business behind the scenes, because at the same time, obviously, you both want to be organized, not only in your personal lives, but in your business lives, but you also have clients that you're servicing. So with so many moving parts, take us behind the scenes there.
Sure. So the thing that I've really picked up, from working with different accounting firms is just kind of a work allocation file, especially when you have multiple employees, or if you're just one person, just keeping it and organizing it by priority. So like this work allocation file would like list out the task with the priority as well as who it's assigned to. So you can go through, I'd like to do it in a spreadsheet. I'm a spreadsheet kind of guy, just with the way that I work, and just put it in a spreadsheet. You can format it to make it look nice, to make it look, better, and, have it highlighted red when it's open or green when it's complete, and just keeping it there, and using filters on the spreadsheet to show you, like, just a filter by what's priority, or filter by what's by a deadline that you have, or something that just needs to get done ASAP. So that's kind of the way that we'll do it. And like, we'll just go in and we'll check if there's something that needs to be done today, or something that's just higher priority, and who it's assigned to.
Yeah, urgent versus important. It's a question that I feel like all of us entrepreneurs need to ask ourselves on a daily and especially weekly basis. And it sounds like this transposes so perfectly into the nature of the work that you all do, which along those lines, listeners know that we always ask our guests about your zone of genius. And I love the fact that you two have such different zones of genius. Leo, you keep leaning on that accounting background, and I think that's so powerful and effective. Even hearing the way you think like an accountant, and you bring that to the nature of the work that you all do. And Sarit, I love how on your questionnaire you jotted down understanding the clientele. Talk to us about those two unique zones of genius, because I do see in your work and in the way you talk about your work how much it shows up. So I'd love to hear from both of you how that translates into the work and the results that you deliver for clients.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say, like, just to give an example, I've had multiple times that I've been on the phone with somebody as like an initial phone call, and we're talking, I'm kind of hearing a little bit about their space and kind of getting to know, getting like to feel them out, what they're looking for. And a lot of times they'll tell me they're searching around, for other, just to kind of get other prices, or to kind of feel other organizing companies out. And very often I get a call back from them saying like, hey, I'd love to go ahead with you, because I felt that, I connected the most to you. I felt like I was being understood, and it's happened multiple times. And I think that definitely has, it's definitely attributed to, where I have come from with that, with not always being so organized and developing the appreciation for it, that I can really relate to, the clients and what they're telling me, and what they need. So I think that's a huge part of business, is just to like show that you're relatable, show that you understand where the person's coming from. I know there's a lot of like strategy behind business, but I think a really, really big part that I think that I contribute to, to our partnership here as well is just like kind of, I guess, more of like the emotional side behind it, and just kind of really the like the being real with people. And I think that's really like important. And I think often overlooked with businesses, that a lot of it's kind of like very, what's the word? Like just all systems, all systematic. And I think, I think that's just something that I contribute, that clients really see and appreciate, that, that they're being understood, and it's something relatable, and, they're not alone, and it's super normal to, to come from where they're coming from, and, to ask for the help. And I think, I also have a little bit of a background in marketing as well. I did major in marketing. So, I guess like the little bit of sales aspect there as well kicks in. So, I think it's knowing how to talk to people, and kind of, hearing good feedback from that.
Yeah, and Sarit's definitely great at the marketing job. Like we had at the beginning, when Sarit was starting to get a little bit more busy and we didn't really have any other people to come in and do sales with us, I had to try to do some sales. And I don't think I'm necessarily bad at sales, but I think within this space, you kind of need to have a more empathetic approach, which I may not have as well as Sarit does. And, she was quick to see that it wasn't working so well, and, was able to jump back in and speak to the clients instead. But regarding where I feel most comfortable, although, like you had mentioned, you can see that I think like an accountant, which I'll interpret as a compliment for now. But my zone is really kind of just analyzing what the business needs and kind of just going in and trying to fix that. I don't have background in marketing and SEO and, all the other aspects that goes in, but sometimes I can see where something is going wrong, or I can see what's causing people to leave our website, and then try to pivot from there. I'll start looking up different courses, either on YouTube or some online courses over the web, of web design, to see, how we can really maximize the conversions on our website. Or, I'll be looking into SEO, which is something that I have taught myself somewhat. When I finally came to the realization that searching on Google and showing up on Google is not by mistake. You don't just publish your website and then all of a sudden you show up on Google. You really have to intentionally write your website and intentionally write it for a way to rank on Google, and do the back end work of acquiring backlinks and everything to make it rank. And it's just something that like I pride myself on doing, is just kind of just adapting to whatever is needed. And if I find that it's either too time consuming or too tough for me to take on, then just trying to find the right people to outsource it to.
Yeah. If I can jump on that as well, just to kind of like commend him, and maybe to suggest to other business owners to do the same, which is that, like he said, he's really been great with like understanding when he can jump on something and when it's the right time to outsource to somebody else. So I think just kind of, if people want to keep that in mind, I think it's just a really, not something to let go of and put on the back burner, but just really to kind of like let the ego drop a little bit and understand like when is the right time to outsource and when is something you could take on.
Yeah, really well said to both of you, especially with that also added note there, Sarit, because I think it is so important. And Leo, I'm going to quickly chime in. And yes, it is for sure a compliment that you think like an accountant, because I do think that it's that level of awareness. I mean, what I can see that you bring from accounting, as displayed in your answer right there, is accounting sometimes gets criticized for being black and white, but it is that level of awareness of this is the current situation. And when we look at a balance sheet of a business, that is a financial snapshot that is rooted in reality. And so the fact that you two so clearly not only love what you do, but you bring the human element to it from that place of self-awareness. And I'm gonna send some initial compliments here before we get towards the end of this interview. But listeners, when you check out Leo and Sarit's website, which is neatandorderlyny.com, we're going to talk about it at the end of this episode as well. But even when someone goes to your website, they're going to see personality. They're going to see life behind your business. And it's so clear that you both love what you do. You have incredible testimonials. There's so much useful information. And the two of you, your energy shows up in the way that you operate. And Sarit, hearing you bring it back to that empathetic part of sales, of marketing, of client service. I think that it also reveals why the two of you are amazing entrepreneurs. So I always love in these conversations talking to you, not just as subject matter experts, but as entrepreneurs yourselves, because you're also figuring it out. Leo, you're a real life example of, hey, I didn't have a sales background. You're figuring it out. Talk to us about that aspect of being first-time entrepreneurs. I mean, individually, but also collectively. I'd love to hear what has surprised you as first-time entrepreneurs when it comes to actually starting your own business and running your own business.
For me, it's just been how many moving pieces there are behind it. There's just kind of, you have to scrutinize every move that's being made and see if it works. And then if it does, then trying to recreate it, like in sales or, other client-facing activities that you do, or just in the way that your website works or the way that SEO is going. You have to it's trial and error, seeing, okay, I just made one edit to the website and we actually dropped 3 positions in Google or whatever. It's just a lot of monitoring. And also just like sometimes if you're running different ads, you have to scrutinize if it's working or if it's not. You really just got to pay attention. There's so much to pay attention to that it can just like sometimes, it can cause late nights or other things that, that may not be so much fun. But at the end of the day, it's a challenge and it'll feel really good once you get over that hump of like, oh, I finally figured out why we dropped 3 positions in Google after I made that edit. And now you go in and you make the edit. And now you're up, 2 to 4 positions. So it's really just kind of having to look at everything and every activity that you do under a microscope.
Yeah. I think what surprised me the most was, as he is kind of more of the business mindset with this. I guess I was more surprised of the fact of how much work actually just goes into the business and how much of our own time we'd need to be spending, working the business. So it's not, no business owner is 9 to 5, it's just not how it is. And, I guess that kind of surprised me the most. And I guess that, that like work-life balance has been something that I've, been trying to like make my way through and just kind of continuing to find that work-life balance through it.
Yes. And this is the real stuff. This is why our show exists, is because I think these are the real conversations that we need to have publicly. So I so appreciate the two of you's transparency. And I'm also going to call you out. I'm going to add on. I didn't plan on doing this in today's episode, but if memory serves me correctly, I think you are only the 4th couple entrepreneurs in this show's history in 850 plus episodes. So I'd love to hear, I'm going to add on something for other founder couples. How the heck do you guys manage it? Because on top of what you just shared with us about managing a business, you're also managing a relationship and a life together. So give us some of those intricacies and considerations.
Yeah, so definitely a point that I knew I wanted to bring up here as well, especially you asked it anyway. It's definitely a wild ride, and not everyone is made to do it. Not everyone can do it, work together as a couple. But I think I think we're still balancing. I think it's always like just being really real here. It's a relationship as difficult as it is. And so, a relationship with running a business, has its ups and downs and that's to be expected. But, I think just kind of making sure to make time for each other and to make, to do the best we can to keep business separate from work, separate from home life, and to, kind of say like, hey, can we set a time for a meeting as opposed to like just bringing up work over dinner. Right. So like it happened like at the beginning when we were starting out, like, we'd both come home from work and eating dinner, and then eating dinner turned into like business talk. Right. And so I think just kind of figuring out like, all right, let's schedule in a meeting for the two of us, because we do live together. We are, constantly with each other. And I think it's about making sure you set a time so that it doesn't take over your whole life. I think just setting times where there's going to be business talk really helps us kind of maintain our relationship outside of the business.
Definitely. And then also like, just like in any relationship, you have to understand that you're 2 different people that work 2 totally different ways. Like, as I'm sure, you can see, is that where I'm like the business background, and Sarita's the, client facing, empathetic, outgoing, kind of person. So it's just like I can be there saying like we can just push and push and push and push, but Sarit's also like she has to run out and going all over the place, and it can just be a lot. But from a business standpoint, you're like, okay, but we're leaving sales on the table. We can do more sales, but at the end of the day, you have to come to that midpoint where both of you can work together with both of your strengths.
Yes, I really appreciate these real honest insights. And Leo, I'm just going to give you a few additional kudos, because when you talk about SEO, one of those things that I heard from you within the context of SEO is these things don't happen by mistake. And now giving kudos to both of you, Sarit and Leo, both of you are saying that your relationship, these things don't happen by mistake. Running a business together, these things don't happen by mistake. So that level of intentionality from both of you of saying, hey, let's not just sit down for dinner and start talking about business. I think that that's so powerful, and it's going to yield incredible growth, which is why I want to ask you about your growth plans, because obviously I just tooted your website's horn a little bit. neatandoorderlyny.com. The NY is for New York, but shed some light onto us. How long will you both be just in New York with your operations, or what are those growth plans?
We would love to shed the NY from the website. The plan is to keep going and really just build up first within New York City, which has such a large market for home organizing, especially just with the density of people there, and just the demand and everything over there is perfect to start this kind of business, and then kind of work our way out with bringing on some new people that would help us within the different locations that we would see a fit to bring our services to, and it's really just our goal is kind of to keep meeting exactly what the client needs, but also meeting what the employees would need. We've definitely seen within the industry that there are some, employment mistakes or missteps that have been taken. And, our goal is to kind of try to correct that and kind of like make the experience better for the employees as well.
Yeah, really well said, Leo. Is there something you wanted to add to that, Sarit?
No, I think that I agree. That was great.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, then I'm going to put this one right onto you, Sarit, because you have so much interaction with your clients. And that is, what is typically the catalyst? What's typically the spark for when someone sits there and says, you know what, I need help with regards to this, or I need to invest attention and energy and resources towards cleaning up my space, cleaning up my life, getting that additional clarity and room to operate. What is the straw that typically breaks that camel's back?
Yeah, so I find that it's generally one of two ways. So the first way is that, somebody's just so overwhelmed and like it's gotten to be like, okay, it's enough already. I can't handle it anymore. So that's usually when they'll look us up for some help. And the other way is generally when there's like a big life change like about to happen or has just happened. So, we get a lot of moving calls, a lot of like, I'm having a baby calls, and I need to, figure out how to make room for that, or, change my husband's office into the nursery now. Like, how do we do that? Or I just moved in with my boyfriend, or I just, I think life changes is kind of like generally when people are like, all right, we need a little bit of help with this. You need to figure out how to kind of, make room for another person, or a breakup, and then we're getting our own life together. I think those are kind of the main two reasons that people reach out. And I think, and once in a while there is the call of just like, I'd like to get some better systems. I'd like my life to run more efficiently. And I think those are honestly the most like eye-opening, clients that we get, because I think it's nice to see that people like kind of take a moment and like stop with like life, and life is so busy and crazy, and they like kind of make that moment for themselves. Like, maybe I should, maybe I would work a little bit better with a little bit more organization. And so I kind of really enjoy the clients that do just want a few, just make my life a little bit easier kind of thing. But generally it's one of the other two that we see.
Yes, or hopefully, you listeners, I'm going to call all of you out. Hopefully, this episode can be the catalyst and that spark for you to change. So there's a very intentional reason why our production team decided for this episode to be our featured Friday episode this week. It's because Friday is a perfect time to be introspective and to be intentional and strategic about the moves you want to make. So hearing from Sarit and Leo here today, I hope that this is the catalyst to all of us taking this more seriously and making that change in our lives, which leads me to it's the question that I love to ask at the end of all these episodes because I have no idea which way you guys are going to take it. And it's cool because today we get two separate answers to this question, one from each of you. And that is, what's your action or takeaway that you hope every listener walks away from today's session with? They have a lot of homework and a lot of food for thought, but one from each of you. You can make it about personal organizing or about business or anything that you want that you know will help our listeners. What's that one takeaway you hope they walk away with?
So for me, I want to just speak more to the business end for the entrepreneurs out there. Don't be afraid. Don't shy away from something just because you don't have experience in it. You don't need to hire a web designer to build out your website. Don't be afraid. If you're just starting out, take 2, 3, 4 weeks to learn how to design a website and the marketing strategies and the different psychology that goes behind what makes somebody want to click your button to get in contact with you or to order one of your products. Start learning about that. Start learning about whatever it is that you need. And just don't shy away from something just because you don't have experience from it. Try it out, see if you need it, and if you can handle it, and if you can't, then go about outsourcing it. It will not only just make you feel more accomplished, but at the end of the day, you'd be cutting out a major expense, which ultimately increases your bottom line.
Yeah. I guess for me, what I would say, kind of my tip for the end of the day, would just be what I touched on before of kind of finding that work-life balance. And I would just say, figure out whatever that is for you. So we had said we stopped talking about business over dinner. I not too long ago got a business phone line. So I have two separate phones, and kind of just make that differentiation for yourself. If that means, not checking your phone after 9 p.m., maybe that's a reasonable enough hour that you don't need to be getting back to someone ASAP by midnight, if it means putting down your phone at 9 p.m. or whatever that is, to kind of give yourself a little bit more slack and a little bit more just care, to kind of make sure you don't burn out, is I think just a really helpful thing, that just kind of make that separation, do what you need to do to make sure that business is business and home is home.
Yes, really good advice. I love the direction that each of you took that answer. I think it's really powerful, and it truly applies to all of us entrepreneurs. So you both have been a wealth of knowledge today, not only when it comes to interior organization and making sure that our spaces are organized, but most importantly, making sure our lives and our businesses are organized and intentional. And I love the way both of you think as entrepreneurs as well. So with all of that said, I know that listeners will be keen, especially because I really think everyone should check out your website. I think it's such a good example. And Leo, you just shared some of those, I always say success leaves clues. You shared some of those real life insights that the work that we're going to find on your website is intentional. It is driven by the fact that the two of you sit down and put your personalities into this instead of hiring it out. So with that said, where should listeners go from here to go deeper into understanding Neat and Orderly and seeing all the great work that you're both up to?
So, you mentioned our website, neatandorderlyny.com. We have an Instagram as well. It's at neatandorderly.ny. Like we said, we'd hope to take the NY away from that soon. But yeah, definitely get in contact with us there. My work phone as well, you can totally feel free to reach out, 718-483-2076. If you have any questions, we'd love to help you and answer them.
Yes, boom. Listeners, you already know the drill. We are making it as easy as possible for you to find those links down below in the show notes, wherever it is that you're tuning into today's episode. Sarit has also become the first ever guest in this show's history to drop her cell phone number. So you see how accessible and helpful they are for all of their clients, and that personal touch that goes into it, that empathetic approach that we really heard from both Leo and Sarit here today. So definitely check those show notes. Go check out their website. We're also linking to their personal LinkedIns down below in the show notes. If if you just want to reach out and say thank you for being such generous and transparent entrepreneurs who are so committed to putting good in the world. So Leo and Sarit, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having us.